employment. Now, we are hoping, as we have said, that it will gather momentum. We're still at the baby steps of this initiative, and more as we put together all the necessary regulatory mechanisms, we will be able to see many more companies participating. Thank you, Chairperson.
The Honorable H.E. Matim.
Chairperson of the Council, thank you very much. Mo Presidente wa Republiki ya Afrika Borwa. Assuming that this pool of participants is all inclusive of women, people with disability, it also bridges the urban-rural divide. Do we have a mechanism, President, that will monitor, make sure that all these participants get absorbed by the economy at the end of their exposure? Nobody is going to fall through the cracks. Do we have such a mechanism? Thank you.
Thank you, Honorable Matim. The Honorable the President.
Yes, thank you, Honorable Chairperson. The mechanism that we have in DPME will be able to do that because it is a monitoring mechanism that looks at what we do in government, but it also evaluates whether we are making an impact or not. But at the same time, we are setting up in the presidency itself an execution unit that is going to make sure that the various initiatives that we put in place are implemented. And so that will, if you like, be more of an oversight type of mechanism that will make sure that we look very closely and look at the granular particulars of the implementation of all these things. So we will be able to follow up all these matters and to look at the impact with regard to young women, people with disabilities, and also look at the regional spread of the initiatives that we are putting in place so that urban and rural are well balanced and rural is not disadvantaged as it is sometimes disadvantaged in all this. So I'm certain that as the machinery and the mechanism really gets underway, we'll be able to gain some traction. As with everything else that is starting, there will be, some teething problems and challenges, rather, I should call them, or processes. So those are being cleaned up, and we are going to start seeing more and more traction being achieved through this. Thank you very much. we should continue to have hope that this project will succeed. And in fact, I would even say we should continue not only to invest hope in it, but to encourage corporates and various other participants to be part of this. And we need to work together to egg everyone on to be part of it, because that is the one project that gives up quite a lot of hope. And of course, the other one is the actual real creation of jobs, and where we'll need to have investments, where the demand process needs to grow, and then factories then can make goods that our people can buy. So that is a process, and we must wish all this very well, rather than approach it from a very negative and critical point of view. So I invite you to be hopeful and to wish this well, and to do your best to make it work. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. President. The Honorable, the Premier of the Northwest, Ramokoro.
I'm trying to press you. Press. Oh, it's on. Yeah. And thank you very much, Honorable Chair. The contribution of young people is well known. And I suppose, Mr. President, we have
Premier, please hold on.
a focus
Honorable members.
and substantive focus.
Premier, please hold on.
Thank you.
Honorable members, this is Premier Mokoro's maiden in the thousand. He is protected.
Thank you very much, Honorable Chairperson. I take it, Mr. President, as the unitary state that we are, this laudable intervention is also finding its way to other spheres of government, to the provincial and the local, and that the participation would certainly go to that extent. And Honorable President, so that we realize the traction that the Honorable President envisages. Thank you, Honorable Chairperson.
Honorable President, if you wish to make a comment. No, Honorable Julius, please take your seat. No, Honorable Julius, take your seat. Honorable President.
Thank you, Honorable Chairperson. I want to stress that, yes, we are a unitary state, and we always seek to do everything that the government initiates to be done on a globular national level, rather than in a way where one or a few provinces are favored at the expense or at the exclusion of others. So this project, having started, yes, in Gauteng, in Tembisa Township, is a project that will be spread throughout. But in these days of Internet of Things and connectivity, a portal, as I said, has been set up, and young people who are techno-savvy more than many of us are able to have great access in this. As we speak now, we already have had 65,000 young people who have registered their interest in securing work opportunities. And we already have 32 companies that have showed their willingness to provide up to 25,000 work opportunities to young people. And it is still at its nascent type of level, and we are going to, in my view, see more and more participation. And these 65,000 young people are spread throughout the country. So the physical location, Honorable Premier, is not really going to be a barrier in terms of where the location of either the offices are. It is the spread of the corporates throughout the length and the breadth of the country that we want to deepen, so that even companies that are in the deepest rural areas of our country who are doing business there should be able to have an offering that young people can have available to them. This process, I think, we should be seen as pioneers in this type of process, because we are not aware of any other country that is doing this. I remember years ago when President Obama spoke in his State of the Union address and raised precisely this issue, inviting companies to participate in providing job opportunities to young people. I don't recall them having gone to the extent that we have gone of setting up a process, a more formal process of getting companies to set up this type of mechanism and bringing in young people. So sometimes, yes, these announcements are made. We have sought to set up a process, maybe too organized, but it is best to do so that we don't exclude anyone, particularly when it comes to the regional or the provincial spread of this type of initiative. Thank you, Honorable Chair.
Thank you, Mr. President. Your last supplementary goes to the Honorable Mukwili.
Thank you very much, Chair, and thank you, President. My question to you, President, is that previously we have experienced that there are initiatives to curb the unemployment of youth in South Africa. The initiatives like your NARISEC, your EPWP, and now you have introduced the YES. I just want to check with you, prior your initiation to YES project, have you ever as a government measured the progress made by the previous programs to youth employment, and what was the outcome? And your answer to me will then tell me how are you then going to move forward to improve what you have failed to do in the previous initiatives. Thank you very much.
Thank you, ma'am. Mr. President.
Thank you, Honorable Chair. Yes, we have sought to evaluate various youth employment programs like your NARISECs, yes, the EPWP as it relates to young people, and that work is underway. I've asked and called for it, so it is going to be made available. Those were largely government initiated, and they were being driven by government. And in this case, we have decided that we want to work with the private sector, with our social partners. And that is why we also involved labor and communities to be part of it. To a large extent, all those social partners have gone a long way in enriching the final product that we have, because as often happens, not everyone has great wisdom in putting together initiatives on their own. It is when they work with others that they are able to gain greater wisdom. So this is precisely what has happened with the YES program. So social partners were involved, and we've allowed, yes, the private sector to be the key driver, because we see them as being the provider of jobs. Jobs will usually be provided and created by the private sector, so we've enabled that process to get underway. And we have been underpinning this whole process as the regulator, as well as coming up with the enabling mechanisms that need to make this process work. So the evaluation we will make, but we will also keep making the evaluation as we go on, as this process is implemented. As I said, we are pioneers in this. And as pioneers, sometimes you do get things very right, and sometimes you miss some steps. But we are determined that we are going to do as best as we can to get this underway, because it offers one of the better ways of getting young people in employment. The other one that was started by the private sector some years ago was the Harambee one. The Harambee one, which brings in young people, which is still ongoing. They have been fairly successful in getting young people prepared for job situations. Now, this one is going to be getting young people into actual jobs and getting them well-trained, well-prepared, albeit for that limited period of the contract. But beyond that, those young people will be in pole position when it comes to getting either permanent jobs in that place where they will be getting the training for the full year, or indeed other related type of companies and industries. So it gives young people a great opportunity rather than sit at home and do nothing. This gives them a pathway through which they can be able to be economically active and participate in the growth of our economy. Thank you very much, Chair.
Thank you, Honorable President. We move on to the second question. It was put to you by the Honorable Julius. It's question number 2.
Honorable Chairperson, I have, in relation to this issue of lifestyles, I've directed the Director General in the Presidency to lead the process of establishing the nature, the form, and the scale of lifestyle audits of members of the executive and those who also occupy positions of responsibility at that important high level. Now, asking the Director General to do so has been informed by the fact that as the Secretary of Cabinet, he is the repository and office, really, of getting all the declarations from members of the executive. Now, a technical team has been set up consisting of the Presidency, the Auditor General, the South African Police Service, the South African Revenue Service, State Security Agency, the Anti-Corruption Task Team, the Office of the Public Service Commission, and the FIC, the Financial Intelligence Center. So all these entities are participating in a task team that the Director General has set up on my direction. Various options are currently being considered for the implementation of this audit process, with a view of developing a sustainable model that will be consistent with the Bill of Rights and relevant legislation. Now, this technical task team is expected to provide a set of recommendations on how we craft this and put it well together so that it becomes an effective process that will have the teeth, that will have the necessary impact that we want it to have. This will enable me to further apply my mind and will provide an opportunity to further consult before a final decision is reached on the nature, the form, and the scale of the proposed lifestyle audits. The lifestyle audits will further strengthen our system of financial declaration of the executive and public servants. Currently, members of the executive, as we all know, make declarations annually to Parliament as well as to the Secretary of the Cabinet, while senior officials and officials in the supply chain management make annual submissions to the Public Service Commission. The lifestyle audits would, in addition to the work done by various law enforcement agencies, which continuously monitor the lifestyle of those who are either suspected of engaging in acts of corruption, fraud, and other criminal activities. The Asset Forfeiture Unit, for example, continues to seize the proceeds of crime. The Financial Intelligence Center follows illegal financial flows. The Anti-Corruption Task Team reported that in the last financial year, 345 people were arrested for corruption and corruption-related offenses, and 250 were convicted. Now, these achievements demonstrate that government is hard at work, but we are even going to be more harder at work to try and clean up processes that are going to reposition our government in relation to dealing with malfeasance and wrongdoing in government. One of the reasons why we thought we wanted to have a more thorough process was that we didn't want just to go with a process that will have holes that could easily be circumvented. We wanted a process in which we would include all these entities or agencies, and I'm satisfied that we are on the right path in relation to having a very robust system of lifestyle audit, and it's possible that we may well be the first in the world to craft a system that is going to involve so many entities, and we hope that it will be really solid and robust enough to deal with the challenges that we face. Thank you, Honorable Chair.
Thank you, Mr. President. The Honorable Julius.
Thank you, Chairperson. Mr. President, thank you for the response, but frankly, I don't buy it. I'm sorry to say, but I don't buy it because there are already officials that are subjected to lifestyle audits. So when it comes to politicians and your cabinet, you want to do extra work. This is another ploy of government to postpone the inevitable. There's nothing wrong with using the same principles of conducting lifestyle audits for officials and your cabinet. I mean, I can't understand. You promised already 7 months ago, during the SONA debate, I asked you to conduct lifestyle audits, and you committed to subject all cabinet members to lifestyle audits. Now, again, we asked the question to the Deputy President a few months ago, and he said, I give you a report from the President. I just called him on my way here today, and the President said they will conduct the lifestyle audits. Now, to this end, in his reply to a DA oral question in the National Assembly recently, the Deputy President, David Mabuza, confirmed that he's willing to be submitted to a lifestyle audit. This is particularly important because in a reply to a DA question in this House last week about whether the Deputy President ever met Ruslan Goring on board of the Gupta-owned aircraft from Johannesburg to Moscow on 26 October 2015. Your Deputy President said that he can't recall who was on the flight with him. Maybe his eyes were closed. He was on high pain medication, his own high pain medication, and that he has no relationship with Russians or the Guptas. Not only does a passenger manifest reveal that Ruslan Goring, a senior Russian government official tasked with negotiating mining deals between Russia and foreign governments, he traveled with
Honorable
the Deputy
Julius?
President. So,
Honorable Julius,
my question is, yes.
your time is up.
My question is, Deputy
Your
President,
time is up.
will you commit the Deputy
Honorable
President
Julius,
to a lifestyle audit? Will you ask him for a lifestyle
Honorable
audit?
Julius, your time was long up, and I told you your time is up. Order, members. Order. Honorable President, you have two options. You may come back to the part where the Honorable started off staying with the supplementary in the first part of his leading up to the question. The second part is that you may choose to go into whether or not it is relevant for the Deputy President and his answer in this House. That is entirely in your hands, sir.
Thank you, Honorable Chair. I have said that we will have a lifestyle audit process, and that we are not going to turn away from. That is going to happen. Now, each time I come to this house, members of this house seem to be in extreme hurry, and they get very excited about when things are happening. And when I tell them that it is going to happen, they always say when. And when it does finally happen, I don't see them coming up with flowers and showering me with flowers and say, "You've finally done it." Now, as I was saying, we are definitely going to have these lifestyle audits, and we are going to ensure that it does, in the end, become an effective lifestyle audit, which is robust. And we should also be grateful that we are actually bringing together these various agencies of real high class, who are able to serve the people of our country, the Auditor General, the Financial Intelligence Center, and all those. Those are important agencies whose help the Director General and Secretary of the Cabinet has solicited with my active support, because we want to have a really good, robust system. And this is the type that will also be spread throughout the country. So allow us space and time to be able to finalize this. In fact, you want a time frame, I can tell you that we are going to have this. By the end of October, we should be able to have a really robust system of lifestyle audit. So we are going to be able to put it forward. Now, I'm not able to answer for the Deputy President. All I can say is that everybody is going to be subjected to a lifestyle audit, from the President right throughout to members of the Executive. I will be subjected to a lifestyle audit, and so will everyone else who serves on the Cabinet. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. President. The Honorable Kaula. Order.
Thank you, Honorable Chairperson. Honorable Mr. President, last time you were here, I referred to you as President, and you denied it. And today I can boldly say, Mr. President, Mr. President, it's too soon to be asking for flowers, sir. When the lifestyle audit kicks in, what will government do, especially legally, to ensure that it bites? It can have teeth, but if the teeth are blunt, it will not bite. So that it does not become the usual. The country has seen commissions and inquiries into anomalies in the country which have never done any major shake-up or have not taken any reasonable steps to the culprits. It has happened with Nkandla, it has happened with SAPC, it's happening with the SOEs, the list is endless. How will this one be made to bite? Recently, the SIU issued a concern that plus minus 686 mostly corruption cases referred to the NPA are gathering dust with nothing being done to prosecute the culprits since 2014. And you are mentioning the very same agencies, they are putting together this. What will be different, sir? Thanks.
Thank you, sir. The Honorable the President.
Thank you, Honorable Chair. Some of the accounts that we are getting to hear about how some of our agencies have been weakened and how some of them have diverted themselves from doing their work is a matter of concern. It concerns us that where there's been wrongdoing, where there's been criminality, some of those agencies that are meant to act on malfeasance and wrongdoing have not done so. And we are concerned about that, and we are taking steps to make sure that we correct those lack of action that some of them have demonstrated. And going forward, we are going to make sure that where there is malfeasance, where there is wrongdoing, there should be action. And I've often said that we need to be a country where there is accountability, where there is consequence management, where if anyone gets involved in actions of wrongdoing, they must know themselves that they have to be answerable. And this should almost be an automatic type of reaction by leaders particularly, that if you have missed a step deliberately, if you have done something that has harmed the Republic, you should know that you should be answerable and there should be consequence management. That is the type of ethos and culture and value system that we want to inculcate in South Africa. There has been too much neglect of following up on wrongdoing. People often do things that are wrong and they are least concerned on whether there will be any consequence or not. Now that has to come to an end. We're a country that should follow rule of law. We're a country that is governed by a constitution, one of the best, if not the best in the world, and we therefore need to live up to our constitutional architecture, where we have said that everyone shall be equal before the law and everyone will be treated fairly and with equity, but that there should be justice. And if anyone perpetrates injustice against the people of South Africa, there should be follow-through and there should be consequence. So we will make sure that even where there are violations of lifestyle audit, we will want to make sure that there is follow-through. Hence, the participation of all these agencies. And these agencies are agencies that have shown in the past, in the main, that they have teeth. They have got people who are honorable who serve in them, and we expect them to follow through. So I would say that going forward, let us have confidence and faith that we are putting things right in the Republic of South Africa, and that there is going to be rule of law application and the right things will be done in the name of our people. Thank you, Honorable Chair.
Mr. President, the Honorable Khayla.
Mangamela. Thank you very much. President, history will judge you wrong if you'd only deal with your executive and yourself on the lifestyle audit.
Andiguva.
Tim Dewan. History will judge you wrong if you'd only deal with yourself and your executive. We've seen that once people are elected to the higher office, they are in control of tenders and government monies, their lifestyle changes. Now the question would then be whether the president will submit mayors and municipal officials to the lifestyle audit. If so, what are the relevant details and time frames? Thank you.
The Honorable the President.
Thank you, Honorable Chair. Through this lifestyle audit process, we will be initiating, if you like, a lifestyle audit revolution. We will not want it to end just with the executive. What is pleasing is that out of their own volition, the South African Police Service management has already embraced this notion of lifestyle audit, and they themselves have said they would like the high echelons of the police to subject themselves to a lifestyle audit. Now, hopefully once this robust system that we are putting in place has been properly completed and bedded down, will stand out as a good example that should then be followed through. Now, we will want this to be adopted, to be implemented throughout the leadership structures of government throughout the country, and there should be no exception. So, mhlekazi wami ke sithi ke bebonke abantu aba nokuba nomsebenzi ezawenza ukuthi babe kumathenda naphi nabo le lifestyle audit process ingene kubo bebonke. Enkosi.
Siyabonga, Mr. President, the Honorable Dlamini.
Thank you very much, Chair. Ngibonge kumongameli welive. Sibonge ke decision oyithethe. It shows a boldness in you. Ukuthi ubuke ukuthi leti imali esitholayo tiyalingana naletinto lesinato. Kubalulekile kakhulu lokho. From our side, we will be looking forward towards the end of this financial year, because you pronounce this year. It will be premature of us to expect you to report in bits and pieces. Your performance report will be next year. We will be looking forward to see how far have you gone in terms of implementing. My follow-up question says that there is a tendency kulaba involved with corruption. Bangasebenzisi emagama abo, but basebenzise abanye bantu. Ingabe le lifestyle audit itokhona yini ukuthi ibalinke labantu nalabantu ababasebenzisayo ukuthi babhalise le tinto tabo te corruption.
Mr. President.
Thank you, Honorable Chair. Sitawenda ukuthi le lifestyle audit ikwazi ukuthi ibalandele ukuthi noma umuntu uzama ukuthi utatfihla yena imlandele ize ifike lapho atifihle khona yena ngokwakhe. So it will be quite comprehensive, and that is why we also engaging entities like the Financial Intelligence Service Center, who are able to keep track of movements of money and cash in various entities and bank accounts. So we are expecting that their contribution to this process will also be very meaningful. And so what I would say is that once this lifestyle audit takes place, there won't be any place to hide. People will be found if they are involved in wrongdoing. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. President. We proceed to the third question. It was put to you by the Honorable Prince.
Honorable Chairperson, thank you very much. Since the State of the Nation address in February, government has taken a number of decisive steps to address the severe financial, operational, governance, as well as structural challenges that are facing our state-owned enterprises. We have worked to strengthen governance by changing the boards of various state-owned enterprises, but also restructuring the board appointment process that affects our state-owned enterprises. This we have done to ensure that people with expertise, with experience and integrity are appointed. The appointment of new boards, strategic SOEs like ESCOM, Transnet and DINEL has done much to improve confidence and create conditions for operational and financial recovery for those SOEs. Several of these boards have undertaken measures to uncover corrupt activities and to hold those responsible accountable. We are changing the way the SOEs have been working by ensuring that board members are not directly involved themselves in procurement responsibilities, and strengthening audit processes by working with the Auditor General as an external auditor. In some of these SOEs in the past, we often found that board members themselves, who are by definition supposed to be non-executive, did get involved in the awarding of tenders. And this we are changing because it is not the right thing to do. In April 2018, we authorized the Special Investigating Unit to probe allegations of malfeasance, fraud and corruption in ESCOM as well as in Transnet. We will soon be able to make announcements about the progress in SIU investigations and civil recoveries that can be immediately pursued against wrongdoers. Government continues to support investigations by law enforcement agencies, the National Treasury, and the Commission of Inquiry into State Capture in the affairs of SOEs as well as government departments. All these efforts will culminate in the referral of all relevant matters for criminal prosecution and civil recoveries. By undertaking these measures, we are essentially improving the capacity of SOEs to make the contribution that we all expect they will make in the development of our country. Several SOEs are critical to the functioning of our economy, as we have often said, and therefore they make a direct contribution to growth, employment creation, as well as transformation. We cannot restore our economy to health unless we restore our SOEs. We are working to ensure that they support black industrialists through dedicated funding and transparent procurement processes. State-owned enterprises are encouraged to source supplementary funding for development initiatives through options such as public-private partnerships, government incentive programs, international donor funding, and empowerment dividend, which is where the shareholder allows the entity to retain dividends to specifically finance a developmental agenda or mandate. The private sector participation framework, which was approved by government in 2016, aims to accelerate the delivery of infrastructure programs that are key to enabling economic growth through leveraged financing with the private sector. Government is committed to cost SOEs developmental mandates more explicitly with the financing that can be set out more clearly in shareholder compacts. The commercial and developmental mandates of SOEs are being aligned with the imperative for accelerated and inclusive growth and the reduction of poverty and unemployment in our country. So it is quite important, therefore, that our SOEs play a critical role in the life of our economy, and it is for this reason that we focus a great deal of attention on straightening them out. And this has to be the case because they are state-owned, and much of their funding, particularly those that have been in distress, has either been provided by the fiscus or underwritten by the fiscus. So it is important that we take a great deal of interest and responsibility for the way that they function. Thank you, Honorable Chair.
Mr. President, the Honorable Prince.
Thank you, Honorable Chairperson. Thank you, Honorable President, for responses. The ANC acknowledges with gratitude the Minister and government commitments and dedicated strategy and efforts to deal effectively with SOEs in order to rebuild SOEs to become an integral part of the bigger plan to build the economy of the country. My question, whether in light of the recent ESCOM strike, government has engaged ESCOM and other state-owned enterprises to develop effective dispute resolutions mechanism and harmonious labor relations to avoid industrial disputes and strikes that might undermine government's plan to rebuild state-owned enterprises. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am. The Honorable the President.
Yes, thank you very much, Honorable Chairperson, Honorable Prince. The answer is yes. We have had to go back to the drawing board and have a deep discussion with management and board at ESCOM in relation to how they can best harmonize labor relations and their dealings and relationship with unions, so that in the future we should avoid the types of industrial action that ensued at ESCOM. The discussions are broad and they are deep, and we are having we will encourage them to have further discussions with the unions themselves, because out of the process that we've been through, there are many lessons to be learned, and we need to pay attention to some of the errors, the mistakes, and the lapses that we experienced along the way. So all parties have to go back to the drawing board and extract important lessons. But the aim, as you correctly say, Honorable Prince, should be how we can have a more harmonious type of relationship, type equation in state-owned enterprise between employers as well as employees, as well as the board supporting all that. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. President. The Honorable Koni.
Ke a leboga mme Modise. Ke bona smile sa gago le nna ke ntse ke go gopotsela ka ntse o nkgopotsa. Thank you very much, President. State-owned companies should be central to the growth of any economy, especially a developing economy like ours. But this can only happen if there's leadership with vision and good governance. Unfortunately, the new minister, Pravin Gordhan, has none of this and has his own agenda. Since Honorable Pravin Gordhan took over as the Minister of Public Enterprises, he has embarked on a reign of terror at SOEs. We have been informed that Honorable Pravin bullies and intimidates board members and employees at SOEs. The ANC members in this house knows that's why they are quiet. And in his racist decision making and attitude, this has been supported by others who have come forward to complain, and it is clear that this is a pattern in the minister's behavior. So my question to you is, if so many people are saying the same thing, have you as the President of the Republic at any given point followed up on these allegations? And if you have not, now that I have informed you, I have made you aware, what are you going to do about it?
Honorable the President.
I thought you were smiling at me. Honorable Chairperson, ministers are appointed because they have abilities to execute a number of tasks. They are put in various positions because we trust them and have confidence in them to be able to execute those tasks. And it is possible at times, as they execute those tasks, they have to take difficult decisions that may not sit well with people who have to interface with them. Now, the types of allegations that you are putting forward, I have not heard of, and as you yourself correctly say, you're now telling me, I had not heard of that. But what I can say is, I do not have ministers in the cabinet who execute their tasks and underpin it with unsavory type of behaviors such as racism. Ministers are not supposed to underpin their various tasks and actions by displaying any form of racism or sexism or tribalism or anything. Now, I have known Minister Pravin Gordhan for many years, and I've known him to be the type of person who gets really focused in the execution of his tasks. And it is possible that as he does his work, people may feel that they are adversely affected by some of the decisions and actions that he takes, and that in the end is a matter which one should know that it can happen, and if it is happening unfairly, you have the defense to be able to say this is not fair and raise the issue so that the matter can be looked into. But to make it clear, none of the ministers in the cabinet underpin whatever actions that they take with a tinge of racism, with a tinge of sectionalism or tribalism or whatever. So I will reject that completely, because when they were appointed and took an oath to be faithful to the Republic and also to execute their tasks in terms of the Constitution of the Republic of South Africa. But having heard what you are saying in this House, one will take note, but what I do know is that Minister Gordhan needs to be applauded for a number of the actions that he is taking. It does need to be applauded for that. And you can also join in the applause. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. President. The Honorable Lapsachn.
Thank you, Chair. Mr. President, in May, you stated that state capture was bigger than ever anticipated, and you had no knowledge regarding how big the extent was before the Gupta leaks came out. It is impossible that you didn't know about the extent of state capture, especially since the DA has been bringing to your attention at every time that you as Deputy President appeared before Parliament. You were in charge of SOEs when state capture flourished, while we repeatedly brought it to your attention, and you did nothing to stop it to happen. Now, we have no other choice than to believe that you could mislead the people to again protect yourself and the corrupt members of your ANC. If the Zondo Commission calls you to appear before it to answer questions regarding state capture, will you do so in your personal capacity as well as in your capacity as the President of, or in your capacity as the President of the country, as well as in your capacity as the President of the ANC?
Thank you, ma'am. The Honorable President.
Thank you, Honorable Chair. The issue of state capture is a matter that has affected all of us in the country, and what is being revealed in the Zondo Commission is coming across to a number of people as both a surprise and a shock, as the details are now being revealed in their particulars. And some of the things that were not really apparent in press reports are now being put forward. And in doing so, we are all keeping attention on what is being said. And so far, what I would say is that we should continue to hear the evidence and analyze the evidence that is being put forward. As far as I'm concerned, if the Zondo Commission asks me to appear before it, I have no difficulty, I have no opposition. I will go with a great deal of pleasure to go before the Zondo Commission if the Zondo Commission says, President, come and appear. because it is important that the people of South Africa get to know exactly what was happening in the state. And to the extent that any one of us has a story to tell, has something to put forward to the Zondo Commission, we should never hide. We should go forward. In fact, as you cite the ANC part of it, it was the African National Congress that asked that a commission be set up. It was the ANC. So, as president of the ANC, I can never, as president of the ANC, dissociate myself, run away from a commission that we said we want to see set up. So we will be able, without any form of interference, without any form of influence on that commission, because in any way it is not in our makeup to even seek to interfere. When the Zondo Commission seeks our participation, we will be more than happy to go to the commission. It is a public commission. The people of South Africa deserve to know what is happening, because the state as it is not a fiefdom of an individual. It is not a fiefdom of a particular party. The state belongs to the people of South Africa, and we will be answerable to the people of South Africa. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. President. Last supplementary to the Honorable Esak.
Honorable Chairperson, thank you for the opportunity. I was wondering, am I in or am I out? So, great, thank you so much. Mr. President, this is an easy one. Recently, the Honorable Finance Minister, Honorable Nene, said in this House, and I'll quote his exact words to you. He said that state-owned companies have been hampered by state capture, which in simple English would be referred to as fraud and corruption, and that various government initiatives are currently underway that are aimed at rebuilding the capacity of state-owned companies to then live up to their mandates, unquote. So my question is very easy, and that is, there are no or very limited criminal consequences currently for those, in many instances, high-ranking political office bearers implicated in state capture. And there are no reports from politically connected people of the recovery or repatriation of the billions siphoned off SOEs and government departments. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Honorable Esak. The Honorable the President. Honorable members, he did make a statement earlier on. Another member could not get to a question, made a statement, he was responded to. I'm allowing this one too. No, Mr. President.
Thank you, Honorable Chair. It was indeed a statement, but I'm happy to respond to what I think the question was. I think the question was, what action is being taken against those who have either been fingered, and what actions are we taking to recover the monies that have disappeared? Now, what I can say is that, yes, there are quite a number of individuals who have been cited, who have been fingered, and processes of investigating all that is underway. And as I indicated, we have had problems. We must admit, we have had problems where some of our agencies have actually been very slow, and they've neglected to take action. They've been tardy in taking action. In some cases, they've been really brilliant. They've been really outstanding. And we therefore have a combination of where great work has been done, and in some cases, tardy work has been done, and we now want to clean all that up so that we live up to the expectations of our people, which is deal with corruption wherever it happens, and those who are accountable should be accountable. As regards bringing back the money, we are definitely on the trail of bringing back the money, because that money belongs to the people of South Africa, and we will find it and we will bring it back. That we will do. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. President. That is the last response to question number 3. Honorable Esak, respect us. Honorable Esak, respect the House. We move on, honorable members, to question number 4. Mr. President, it was put to you by the Honorable Mukweli. Can you give the President the space to respond to it?
Honorable Chair, honorable members, there is increasing consensus amongst many people in our country, as well as organizations, both within South Africa and internationally as well, that accelerated land reform is essential for inclusive growth and development of our economy. There is broad support for the government's position that the measures required to effect land reform must be guided by the Constitution and that they must affirm the rule of law. In other words, there is great support right across, almost unanimous support, that whatever we do in relation to addressing this issue of land must be done in terms of our Constitution, and it must also be done in terms of the rule of law. And that as we do so, we must also in the process enhance property rights of all South Africans, underline all South Africans, and not just a few. And clearly, implementing this must also ensure that we do not undermine the economy, we do not undermine the agricultural input of our country and food security. That makes up the equation that majority of South Africans agree with. So that should be taken as a given, that this process that we have embarked on should become an orderly process. It should become a process that will be underpinned by a rule of law. We have no reason to believe that any country would impose sanctions on South Africa for any actions that we take, actions that are constitutional, that are lawful and consistent with international law. I discussed the issue of land reform with the UK Prime Minister, Theresa May, during her working visit to South Africa on the 28th of August. She welcomed the way in which we are approaching the land issue and understood that land reform could, in the end, unlock investment opportunities as long as it remained legal and transparent and was the process, or rather the product of a democratic process. A democratic process that we are currently involved in. No communication was received by my office from the government of the United States of America regarding the expropriation of land without compensation. However, the Department of International Relations and Cooperation did meet with the Charge Affairs of the United States Embassy on the 23rd of August regarding comments made by President Donald Trump on Twitter. The Charge Affairs was urged to convey to the government of the United States South Africa's deep concern and to point out that the people of South Africa, of all races, are working together through Parliament and indeed a number of other formations and legal platforms to find a solution to this historic challenge. South Africa remains ready and willing to engage with any country in the world or international agency or organization on its approach to land reform. Just a day or two ago, our Minister of International Relations and Cooperation had a meeting with the Foreign Minister of Belgium, and in their discussion, the Foreign Minister, Mr. Reinders of Belgium, says he understood the issue of land and that it must be addressed. And he also said this is a complex problem that affects many other countries in the world. So there was a keenness on his part to say that I understand and you have to deal with this matter and address it. Thank you, Honorable Chair.
Thank you, Mr. President. The Honorable Mukweli.
Thank you very much, Mr. President, for your answer that you have indeed engaged with foreign leadership and that you are adamant in terms of shaping or taking the initiative of expropriation of land without compensation. But now we are still faced with the anarchy, with the arrogance within the country by the likes of the right-wingers by the name of AfriForum and its partners, continuously spreading propaganda that white farmers are being murdered in South Africa and that this initiative by government, by parliament to amend the constitution will indeed affect the economy of the country. Now, my question to you, Mr. President, is that what are you going to do as a president to make sure that this spread of propaganda, this spread of lies that is in fact affecting the economy by its own nature, how are you going to address it to make sure that it comes to a stop? Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am. The Honorable the President.
Thank you, Honorable Chair. What we have to do collectively is to make sure that we really become true to the path that we have chosen. The path we have chosen is to address this issue of land reform, utilizing the structures and forums that are currently dealing with it. And the most formal one is the parliamentary one, where debates, discussions are taking place, and I think this is where we should concentrate our attention on, because through this we are able to disprove the fallacy and the untruths of organizations that are trying to spread false stories about South Africa, what we are doing, and spreading fake news. Now, those are currently being discredited themselves. And as the truth becomes a reality, and as many well-thinking people who do their own analysis see the processes that we are involved in and how we are doing it, they become convinced that we have engaged on a path that is going to lead to a collective end that will be owned by all of us, because there is no other democratic structure where a discussion can take place other than Parliament. And of course, it's complemented and supplemented by various other structures. the discussions that we've been having throughout the country, and indeed our own political parties are also involved in these discussions, and those too complement the work that is being done. And as the matter is being ventilated more and more broadly, it is sinking in the consciences of people who are well-thinking, who can now see that, yes, indeed, this is a historic problem and challenge we have to address. And this was clearly confirmed in my discussion with Prime Minister May. And indeed, many people are saying, you have to do this, you have to do it. But then again, a number of them are saying, as you do it, you make sure that, yes, indeed, you do transform, you do develop, but you do ensure that there is stability. So that is what we are going to keep to ensure the stability, and we are going to then prove that those who are spreading lies about our country, who are teaming up to go all over the world, will be telling falsehoods. And we will be able to counter that by telling the truth as it is. And the truth is precisely what Parliament is involved in, and which is a really fantastic, wonderful debate that is ensuing. Let us remember that when we also drafted the Constitution, in the year we drafted the Constitution, there were others who ran off and went to other countries in the world to go and scream and shout and complain that, you know, rights are going to be violated. But in the end, their efforts came to naught, because we had embarked on a journey like now. We have embarked on a journey that is going to lead us to a fantastic destination. Collectively, we are going to find a solution for this problem. So that's where we are headed to. So if you are concerned, I would say, don't be concerned. Just relax. This process will end up very well. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. President. The Honorable Beyers-Smith.
Thank you, Honorable Chairperson. The Land Bank has agreements with built-in protection against expropriation with its investors, which means that it will have to repay 9 billion rand immediately. If it is unable, it will cost the entire 41 billion rand portfolio. We cannot afford to have the land bank go bust, as this will have a knock-on effect on various other SOEs and banks which our economy depend on. How will you, as the President, find this 9 billion rand to ensure that the land bank does not go bust?
Honorable Mr. President.
Thank you, Honorable Chairperson. I'd like to say that in the course of this debate, this wonderful debate that's underway, we are obviously getting a number of inputs. Inputs from the banks, inputs from various organizations. And let me say that those are the inputs that we should listen to, and we should heed, we should take note of. And if those inputs are going to result in instability, we should see how best we address them. If they are going to lead us into a chaotic situation, we should address them, because there is no joy and no fun in going ahead and falling into a ditch or a precipice when you see it. So those concerns we have heard about, and we are engaging with various financial institutions And they have wonderfully said they want to engage with all of us so that we have discussions on how best these type of challenges can be addressed. Now, we obviously will want to come up with solutions on how we address these, and the solutions can vary from saying, yes, you go ahead, or you halt, you come up with alternatives, you try to guard yourself against the downside, and all manner of options. So we're going to explore every option. What I can assure you on is that we are going to spend a great deal of time, great deal of energy exploring various options. And I would, if you sat on my cabinet, I would have said, don't bring me problems, bring me solutions. So I would have said, bring me a solution. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. President. The Honorable Sefako.
Thank you very much, Honorable Chair, Mr. President. Land reform is an emotive and historic national question. While embarking on the process of expropriations without compensations, what is it that we are having in plan to prevent land grab and land rush? Thank you.
Thank you, sir. The Honorable, the President.
Thank you, Honorable Chair. I have said consistently that South Africa is a country where there is a rule of law. There will not be any scope, space where we will allow land grabs, land rush, as you say, where anyone can just wake up in the morning and go and do what they like and say, this is my piece of estate, I'm taking over. That is not going to be allowed. And what is pleasing, Honorable Member, is that this approach is being accepted and embraced by the majority of South Africans. Majority of South Africans are South Africans who are peace-loving, are South Africans who want to see law and order, who want to see justice as well. And with that, we will be able to rely on the majority of our people in the country, as well as our various structures of government and agencies, to defend the right decisions that will be taken, defend the constitution of our country. So those who would want to take measures that lead to self-help, land grab, are going to be in serious trouble, because it will not be allowed by the majority of people in our country. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. President. The Honorable Shabangu. The Honorable Shabangu.
Thank you, ma'am. Thank you, Mr. President. You have covered most of what I was going to say.
Thank you.
But let me indicate that what is the state's action on the preaching of lies by white farmers that black people cannot till the land, and this is going to affect the security negatively, food security negatively. Lastly, this is a brotherly advice, a quote from Shakespeare's book, that President, beware the eyes of March. Thank you. About
Mr. President, I don't know what the warning is all about, but you are free to respond.
Thank you, Honorable Chair. Now, those who say that black people cannot till the land, they cannot farm, I would just want to refer them to a wonderful book that's called The Seed is Mine, which speaks about many years ago of a sharecropper, Cas Maine, in the northwest area, who used to farm on a white person's farm, and who had farmed it for close on to 40 years and had developed a very keen expertise at farming, but was finally frustrated by the fact that when he died, he did not own the land. And his complaint was he farmed as a sharecropper, the seed was his, the cattle, the oxen that pulled the plow were his, and the plow shares were his, but in the end, the land was not his. And he executed his farming activities with great excellence. And indeed, throughout the country, if you go throughout the country, you'll find that black people are very, very capable cattle farmers. They are very capable grain farmers. And where they have not really been able to execute great expertise is because they have not been given land, or they have not had access to land in areas where, for instance, certain crops or certain products grow. And the capability of black people in farming runs in their blood, runs throughout their history, their own experience. And if you look, who has been working the farms? Who has been working in the farms? It is black people who've been working on the farms, and all that we need to do in the end is to unlock that energy, that capability, and give our people the right, the space, and the opportunity to farm, produce food for our country. That is what our government is all about, and hence the issue of land is so important. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. President. Honorable members, we proceed to question number 5. Mr. President, it was put to you by the Honorable Labuskaghni.
Honorable Chair, it is not unusual for state-owned enterprises to raise funding in the market for things like capital investment or operating costs. They do so in accordance with standard commercial arrangements and indeed conventions. ESCOM, yes, recently entered into a loan agreement with the China Development Bank for $2.5 billion, approximately 33 billion rand, which will be used to fund the construction of the Kusile power station. This is the third tranche of $5 billion facility that was approved by the Ministers of Finance and Public Enterprises in 2015. The facility has a grace period of 5 years, and thereafter the principal amount is repayable by ESCOM in 20 installments over a period of 10 years. There are no specific conditions for this loan. ESCOM has indicated it will not be able to make the loan agreement public since it contains information that may put ESCOM at a disadvantage when negotiating in the market. And quite often, and I found that to be the case when I was in business, a number of agreements that are struck at a commercial level are often confidential between the transacting parties. And the confidentiality is also governed by the clauses in the agreement itself, that the agreement must remain confidential. Now, the interest rate that has been charged is quite a competitive one. when one looks at the global market. The loan is government guaranteed under the existing Government Guarantee Framework Agreement. Among other things, this means that no ESCOM assets have been used as security for the loan, and the China Development Bank is not entitled to any direct or indirect ownership of ESCOM assets. Transnet recently secured a $4 billion rand loan from the Industrial and Commercial Bank of China, not from the China Development Bank. The loan came with terms and conditions that are standard for the type of loan. The funds will be used to finance the general operating activities and certain capital expenditure of Transnet. Transnet will be responsible for paying the interest and repaying the capital. The facility is a 5-year facility. It is rand denominated, and there is a quarterly amortization of the loan on a floating and competitive interest rate. I thank you.
Thank you, Mr. President. The Honourable Labuskaghni.
Thank you, Chair. Thank you, Mr. President. Mr. President, yesterday the DA submitted a request in line with the promotion of access to information Act, the PIA Act, to the terms and conditions of this loan to be made public after we wrote to you on the 24th of August 2018, requesting that you table the full unredacted 33 million rand loan agreement that ESCOM recently signed with the China, billion, yes. Thank you for that. Signed with the Chinese Development Bank, the CDB. With all its material terms and conditions before 14 days in this Parliament, you have to do so or reply. You gave some information now. But therefore, the DA submitted a PIA application to ESCOM itself for the terms and conditions of this loan to be made public. It is vital. We know your government is not selling our country to the highest bidder. And the reason for that is an African Confidential report published last week shows that the Zambian State Electricity Company, ZESCO, is already in talks about a takeover from a Chinese company. The long-term outcome could be effective Chinese ownership of a commanding height of economy and potential biggest loss of national sovereignty since independence. Mr. President, the Chinese debt trap diplomacy has already trapped the Zambian power utility and will no doubt be as ruthless on South Africa's power utility. If ESCOM defaults on the 33 billion rand loan from the CDB, Mr. President, can you assure the people of South Africa that no state assets, not only ESCOM, no state assets will be surrendered to the Chinese Development Bank if ESCOM defaults on the 33 billion rand loan from the Chinese Development Bank?
Thank you, ma'am. Mr. President.
Thank you, Honourable Chairperson. I just want, maybe it will be a little bit of education. The Honourable Member to be aware that our state-owned enterprises, in executing their businesses, as indeed many other companies in South Africa, do go out to borrow. They borrow from a whole number of entities. For starters, and I experience this a lot, when you enter some of these agreements, because they are very sensitive, there are market issues that need to be taken care of, commercial issues, there are confidentiality clauses, because if this is just generally known and disclosed even to competitors or other lenders, it could put you in a difficult position. Now, what we are not in the habit of doing as the South African government is to hand over the assets of our country to other nations, to other entities outside of our country. We are very jealous of our assets and will not hand over South Africa to any other country or any other entity. That I can assure you of. That I can assure you. And in the end, ESCOM has entered into a number of agreements, as I've said before, loan agreements with the Africa Development Bank, with the World Bank itself, the IMF, and in doing so, we have always sought to protect our sovereignty. We've always sought to protect our right to our assets, and we have never been reckless as to can end up in a situation where our assets are finally taken over by others, where there is any form of foreclosure on the debt that could have been entered into. So we are not going to do that. I can give you that assurance. You have already launched your PIA application, and good luck with that. But as for us, we are saying we are extremely careful. This government has been in office almost for 25 years. And in 25 years, we have not sold South Africa, not even to the highest bidder. We have not sold the soul of South Africa to the highest bidder. And those that may have tried, in the end, will fail completely. So you can trust us when it comes to that. Thank you very much.
Thank you, sir. The Honorable Julius.
Thank you, Chairperson. Mr. President, I can guarantee you now that no country, especially China, they will never do something for free. We have a problem in this country of corruption. We are still busy sorting it out, as you said earlier. We cannot afford secrecy. Honestly, the South African public out there do not trust the ANC government at this stage, and you know it for a fact. It is a fact. They don't trust you. Corruption is the order of the day, and you already acknowledged it. Now, Mr. President, when these things happen in the country, I'm sorry, ANC members, your corruption will stop. The President said you will go to jail. Most of you will go to jail. But, Mr. President, with all this secrecy, people can now out there, the public out, they're already making up their own minds. And I heard someone saying to me that, you know what, this is the ANC election money now. That is where the money will come from for the election in 2019, because you don't have money and again you're selling the state. Can you guarantee South Africa today that the ANC will not benefit a cent from these deals that you have made in China? Thank you, Chair.
Mr. President.
I don't know whether that question really deserves an answer, because apart from anything else, it's quite insulting, quite honestly. It is quite insulting that as we go out to try to advance the interests of our country, there are people like Honorable Julius who say that you are doing it because you want to benefit either yourself or the party. It truly does not deserve an answer. Thank you very much, Honorable Chair.
Thank you, Mr. President. The Honorable Shabangu. The Honorable Shabangu. Oh, I'm told it's the Honorable Ngwenya. I just saw a hand.
Thank you, Chair. Dimasiari bo President.
Masiari Abudi.
President, Since democracy, South Africa has received loans from many countries and institutions, including the Chinese. This objection that we find now in this House from the DA about the Chinese loans clearly shows who their masters are. Because if it had been the World Bank, the IMF, Britain, or the US, this question would never be asked. But that's not the point, President. The point is that South Africa still has to secure loans because it does not have the tools and funds needed to invest in its SOEs. That is a sad reality. What is needed is a state-owned bank and central bank with a developmental mandate. The EFF has tabled 2 bills to make both of these a reality. What is your government's position on a state-owned bank and a nationalized reserve bank as proposed in private member bills that we have tabled? Ndolebo.
Mr. President.
Thank you. The issue of a state bank, the issue of a state bank has been in discussion for a very long time. And it has been the resolution of the governing party over a number of conferences. And the issue of the nationalization of the central bank has also been a current issue that was also discussed at the conference of the governing party. So that those positions are positions that are out there in the open, and they're matters, obviously, that have to be debated, even here. And now that bills have been put forward, those bills will obviously be charted through the processes of Parliament to see where they go. Now, in the end, clearly, the African National Congress, in entering the discussion, will be looking at it not to grab headlines, not for sloganeering. The ANC will be entering the discussion because it is a responsible political party that seeks to develop the economy of our country, will do so responsibly. Whilst others want to grab headlines and the neon lights, we will be doing it to put effect to the decisions that were taken by the ANC conference. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. President. The Honorable Khai.
Thank you, Honorable Chairperson.
Order. Honorable Matoda. Honorable Matoda Sambat, do not agree to be distracted by Honorable Mukwili. You are protected, Honorable Khai.
Thank you, Honorable Chairperson. Honorable President, I'm also not going to ask ideologically anti-China question, like our colleagues from the DA. Like Honorable Ngwenya is saying, loans have been borrowed from other countries, but they have never even asked the conditions of those investment loans. But now, because it's China, they even want to go to court about these issues. So my progressive question, therefore, is that how will the 33 billion investment loan to Eskom assist or benefit current government efforts to ensure electricity security to meet the demands of the South African economy, while also assisting electricity security throughout the SADC region? Thank you.
Thank you, Honorable Member. The Honorable President.
Thank you, Honorable Chairperson. It is true and comes as a real surprise to us. I guess it is driven by the prejudice that the DA has against China. It is driven by the notion that they have that China is out to colonize Africa, and we refute that because China has become the second largest economy in the world, and one of these years they will become the largest economy in the world. And it's an economy that has 1.3 billion people, and a huge number of them being consumers of one product or another. And we trade with them, and they're the only country with such a size of an economy that says to us, we want to balance the trade between yourself and us, and we want you to sell goods that are value added to us so that we no longer buy raw materials from you. And we find that quite encouraging to have a partner like that, and also a partner who currently being well endowed with financial resources is able through its various state-owned enterprises and banks to be able to offer loans, and loans that come at competitive rates, loans that come at no more sort of difficult conditions to us. And those are the type of people that we found a lot easier to deal with. But at the same time, we do get loans from a number of other entities around the world, and for those we are never asked a single question, as you correctly say. But having said that, the 33 billion rand that will flow in will go towards developing Kusile, and it will boost our capability in terms of increasing the capacity of our grid, and we will also be able to continue, yes, exporting electricity to nearby countries. Zimbabwe continues to import electricity from us, and we want to bolster our electricity grid so that as our economy grows and continues to grow into the future, we find ourselves well positioned. South Africa remains the most industrialized country on the continent, and therefore having an capability in relation to energy is in tandem with the size of an economy that we have. So we are going to continue utilizing the financial muscle that we can get from those who are willing to give us loans to bolster that. And much of the money, in fact, all of it, will go towards just putting the money in Kusile and to strengthen ESCOM at the same time. Thank you, Honorable Chair.
Thank you, Mr. President. That was the last supplementary. We move on to our last question for you, Mr. President. It is order. No, members. Can I just finish what I'm saying? The next question, the last question, is the question put to the President by the Honorable Makui.
Honorable Chairperson, as indicated in the earlier reply, the Department of International Relations met with the Charged Affairs of the United States regarding the comments made on Twitter, as I've already said, and the Minister was also in communication with her counterpart, Secretary of State, Mr. Michael Pompeo, in this regard. The department also handed an aid memoir to the United States Embassy, which said South Africa is following a consultative process in addressing the issue of land and agrarian reform, and that it will not allow land grabs and anarchy in the process of finding a solution to the issue. The current process of engagement and consultation with all stakeholders is meant to find solutions that are in the best interests of the country. Government has consistently indicated that this process will be undertaken within the confines of the Constitution. So South Africa has to keep on educating those who are interested in our affairs and explaining things to them. That is our task as a government and as a nation. For those who may not understand, our history, who may not understand the processes that we have got to go through we take the time and the trouble to explain all these things to them. And it is for this reason that we respond as we do to not only the Americans, but to whomsoever has a question about this. And let's face it, what we are going through has evoked quite a lot of interest and questions in the minds of many people around the world, as it did when we were going through our own process of bringing an end to the nightmare of apartheid. We had to keep on engaging with foreign governments, foreign people, to explain to them what we were doing. Some of them took the trouble to travel to our country to want to see exactly what we are doing. So we have to do this. It's part of our job description. Thank you, Honorable Chair.
Thank you, Mr. President. The Honorable Makue.
Thank you, Honorable Chairperson. The President has answered the points 1 and part 3 of the original question. So I would want to concentrate on the part 2. But before I do that, Chair, I just want to say that we note with appreciation the DIRCO discussions with the U.S. Secretary of State, and also the point that our President is making about working with Parliament. The reality of globalization is demanding on us to improve diplomatic cooperation and to enhance our constitutional democracy. My question, therefore, would be, what is South Africa's plans with regards to countries that may be in disagreement with policies of our democratic government and democratic processes? So it's that diplomatic field that we need to traverse. And while we're there, Chairperson, to just say that we also today remember what happened in the New York Towers, the World Trade Center, this day in 2001. The images are still vivid in our minds. Almost 3,000 people were killed, and we want to today also ensure the victims of that particular atrocity that we as South Africans are thinking about them. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. On that historical note, the Honorable the President.
Honorable Chairperson, obviously there may well be people, not only in various other countries in the world, but also in our own country, who may not be in full agreement with what could well be the outcome of the process that we are involved in. And our view is that we need to continue engaging them. We should never stop engaging even those who are our detractors, those who do not agree with us. We should try and find ways of showing them why we have to do what we have to do and what it means for us and our own development, and also healing the wounds of the past. And this is something that we believe as a government we should continue doing. And in this regard, we've informed our ambassadors and high commissioners around the world to continue engaging with various countries on the globe to explain to them precisely what we are going through. The minister did engage with the ambassadors and high commissioners and the various representatives that we have, and explain the clear policy positions that we have and the processes that we are going through, so that they are better able and better armed to be able to propagate our message. So it is a process through which we communicate, and there may well be areas of weakness here and there, but our responsibility is to communicate as consistently and as effectively as we possibly can, so that the message can sink into the minds of those who may not agree with us or be our detractors. And we think we are making progress. We're gaining quite a bit of traction. I have seen it with a number of people who were very aggressively against this whole process. But when they begin to hear the history of land dispossession in this country and how the majority of the population were relegated to 13% of the land by the colonizers and the apartheid rulers of our country, and that they held on to themselves 87% of the land holdings in our country, everybody gets a shock. And they wonder, how could this have been allowed? Why did this happen? How could so many people who constitute more than 90% of the population be relegated into a little patch of 13%? When you explain that, when people begin to realize how important this is in the lives of the majority of our people, then their eyes are opened, their minds are also better clarified. So that is the process that we are involved in, and we are spreading the message throughout. So even the heartiest opponents have now come to say, yes, it's got to be done. It's got to be addressed. And many people are saying, yes, address it now. Because we are also saying, if we don't address land reform now, it means that we are embracing instability. We are basically saying there must be instability in South Africa. And nobody wants instability. So therefore, it is forcing all of us to then begin the process of addressing this land issue. So we are onto something that is really wonderful in our country, where we are in conversation with each other over the land issue. And some of the fears are still high, but some are disappearing. The hopes are high amongst our people, correctly so, because they want the asset that was dispossessed from them, that they were deprived of acquiring over the years. They want that asset in their hands so that they can better utilize it to grow our economy and to look after their own households. And in my view, it's a simple and straightforward process, and it should not really bring about headaches to the heads of people. And the wonderful thing, if I may say so, is that a number of solutions are being brought to the fore. Many people are coming up with solutions, wonderful solutions, which we should not reject out of hand, which we should bring on board, because everything that is a good suggestion in terms of dealing with the land question will be good in the end for our people. And we must make sure that it is our people who are going to benefit. And that, for me, is the most important part.
Thank you, Mr. President. The Honorable Kaula.
Yeah, Thokoza Sihlalo Hloniphekile. Honorable President, in the previous question, I was really enjoying the who is who in the zoo atmosphere. Honorable President, the international mentality of juxtaposing Zimbabwe-style land grabs to South African land reform initiatives is something that immediately comes to the fore whenever the question of land in Africa gets debated. So what I would like to know is what is the government doing in clarifying those, because whether we like it or not, they get associated. And I think the public would also be interested in knowing if there is any relationship between the current state of our economy and the current state of our currency with the ongoing land reform issues. Thank you, sir.
Thank you, sir. The Honorable, the President.
Thank you, Honorable Chairperson. Yes, there is some who have a tendency of trying to compare our process of land reform with what has happened in other countries. And then they hold that up and say, look at how disastrous It has been in countries, Venezuela, Zimbabwe, and all that. Now, you know, what I often say is not that we are exceptional. And one is not trying to say that there is any form of exceptionalism about us. But we've always found a way of resolving problems. And some problems which people would have regarded as being intractable, completely difficult problems, we've often found ways of resolving them. We had apartheid in this country. The ANC was formed in 1912. And for 82 years, the ANC was involved in a titanic struggle to bring about the end of the nightmare of apartheid. But it was initially formed to bring the land back to its original people. That was what the ANC was formed for. Now, over time, as the apartheid system became really brutal, we then focused also on human rights. And we said, we want our human rights to be secured, and it became a complete, wholesome, strategic objective of our struggle. But the real core of it, the issue of land, So in the end, I mean, the strategic objective broadened, and through that, we knew that we had a real fight on our hands, and we were fighting against a well-armed adversary who wanted to liquidate and obliterate the African National Congress from the face of South Africa. In the end, they failed to do so. What we then had, what we then had was a negotiation that led to a sea change of the political architecture of our country. Now, I often tell people that we as South Africans, without being exceptional, will do things our way, our South African way. And if you compare us with what happened in other countries, and I start in 1776. 1776, there was the American Revolution. They were not able to reach an agreement on changing the political architecture of their country, and they slaughtered one another. Thousands of people died, but it resulted in a sea change of the political architecture. We did it differently. In 1789, there was another revolution in France, where they were advocating for liberty, freedom, and equality, and they slaughtered one another. It resulted in a sea change. 1917, there was the Russian Revolution. That also led to the sea change of the political architecture of that country. And in 1949, in China, there was another revolution that led to the deaths of many people. Now, if you look at all these epic revolutions that led to sea change in the way countries lived and got run, we are the exceptional one. We were able, through negotiation and discussion, to come up with a solution that resulted in a sea change of how South Africa lived and was governed. And in that regard, we can really count ourselves as being greatly fortunate that we did not in the end lose so many lives, but we found each other. Similarly, on this issue, we are going to find a South African solution.
Thank you, Mr. President.
A wonderful solution that will lead us to an end that will be completely wholesome for all of us. Thank you very much.
Thank you, sir. The Honorable Faber. Honorable Mukweli, can I protect you against yourself? Honorable Faber.
Thank you, Honourable Chair. We have various bilateral trade agreements with international investors. This thing's not working. Sorry, Chairperson. Much too strong for my eyes, I'm sorry to say. We have various bilateral trade agreements with international investors, which include built-in protection clauses, which would nullify these agreements in the event of expropriation without compensation. We are currently approaching many of these same countries and organizations seeking further loans and investments, but basically we fail to honor current deals, but at the same time approaching these parties for further loans. You are a businessman, Mr. President. Would you invest... Can I please speak? Thank you, Chair. You are a businessman, Mr. President, and I would like to know, would you invest further in a country which was currently trying to go back on agreements you already had in place? Thank you, Mr. President.
Thank you, sir. Mr. President.
Thank you, Honorable Chair. The people that we deal with, the people that we are talking with, are able to sit down with us, eyeball us, look us straight in the eye as we exchange views with them. And as we inform them that this country is ruled by law, by a constitution, has an independent judiciary, and has an outstanding financial services architecture, and has one of the best infrastructure rollouts or landscape on the continent, and has great opportunities for any would-be investor. And people look at the jewel that South Africa is when it comes to investments. And those that will be attending, for instance, the investment conference, a summit that we are going to have, are going to be given an investment book that will demonstrate to them the various opportunities that there are in this country. And as we inform them precisely what the regulatory framework is and what those opportunities are, they take a view. They take a view that they are going to invest or not. Now, we've got many other companies, some international and many local, who are saying they've got billions of rands to invest further in this country. Now, you ask them, why are they continuing to invest in South Africa? And others, European ones, recently I attended a launch where one of the German-making companies was investing no less than 6 billion rand in South Africa once again. And that shows confidence. And I would say that rather than try and talk our country down, let us talk about the positives about our country. That is what is important. Now, it is those who say they love South Africa who then go out and talk it down and go and shout on the rooftops of the Empire State Building and all that. And we say, love your country as you love yourself. Because South Africans love this country. They want to see this country winning. Thank you very much.
Honorable members, our last supplement goes to our special delegate, the Honorable Gqiba.
Yes, thank you, Honorable Chairperson of the Council. I rise in appreciation of the responses from the Honorable President, as well as the clarion call that we should work together as collective in the matters of land. Why, Chairperson, I am rising is only because if we can understand historically, there was no land in the dromedaries. If we can understand that, there was no land in the Reiche, there was no land in the Harlem. If we can move from that, we can throw away the pride and sit together and resolve the matters of land. Secondly, my Honorable Chair, to appreciate the giant strides from my Honorable President, the commitment and the effort to change the lives of the people for the better. We are witnessing engagement with a number of countries seeking investors to come back home. We are witnessing that. Only the blind and only the blind who do not see that. How I wish, yes, my prayer is, how I wish the living God can protect you, Mr. President. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. President. I don't know how you respond to an intercession to God.
I do.
Order,
by
members,
saying,
order. Order. You are
Thank you.
protected, Mr. President.
Thank you, Honorable Chair. I do, just possibly by also sharing a process that we've just been involved in, as South Africa, as being part of countries in Africa that traveled to Beijing for the FOCAC summit, where we as South Africa had the opportunity in a number of forms to be able to play, if you like, a leadership role in that summit, a summit that brought together 53 countries on our African continent, where we were able to engage not only with China, but with one another in the most wonderful way. And if anything else, it also advanced our interests and our standing in relation to other countries. And we did so with great humility, with great deference to other countries. And we had wonderful engagements on a bilateral level with a whole range of countries. And the warmth and the level of acceptance that South Africa has on the African continent is continuing to grow. And as we look at our participation also in the Africa Free Trade Area, it is wonderful to see how we are, one, respected and how we are accepted. So we can say that your faces as South Africans were faces that were splashed all over and so well received in the FOCAC summit. So South Africa's flag flew very high, and together we were flying the African flag with a whole number of countries working together. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Mr. President. We thank you for spending the afternoon with us taking questions in the House.
Thank you. Thank you. Am I dismissed? Thank you.
Thank you, honorable members. Please take your seats. Please take your seats. Honorable Sefako, take your seat. Honorable members have already thanked the President for availing himself to take questions. But before we conclude our business for the day, I wish to remind honorable members that the President and the presiding officers of Parliament will at 5:30 be launching a series of books in the old assembly. I've been informed that you have been notified. These are part, no, it's not party what. I don't announce party what. You are all invited to the book launch. It is part of the legacy program of the Parliament. Honorable members, please remain standing while the procession leaves the House. This House is adjourned.
Deputy Speaker, thank you very much. The apology of the Deputy Chief Whip of the DA, Mike Waters, and Honourable Mazzoni will be a little bit late.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you. Any other? Yes, Honourable Deputy Chief Whip.
Thanks, Deputy Speaker. The apology of the Chief Whip of the Majority Party. Thanks.
Thank you. That's the African National Congress. Any other apologies?
Deputy Speaker, Mr. Singh has apologized.
Of the IFP, yes. Any other apologies we should note? None. Let's proceed to consideration of the draft agenda. Any new items you want to add? No. Okay, let's proceed and look at the draft minutes of October 18 as indicated on the draft agenda. Let me just grab a copy here. In the first page. I don't understand how I could be listed amongst the absent, but that's a matter between me and my office, but yeah. Any, on page 1, page 2? Page 3? Page 4? Page 5? Page 6? Any mover for the accuracy of the minutes? Honorable Julian moves. Any seconder? Honorable Mutagane. Moved and seconded, so the minutes are a true record. Any matters arising from there? Or let's go to the next one, the next set, the minutes of Thursday, 1st February 2018. On the first page, any corrections? Page 2. Page 3. Page 4. Okay. Any mover for the correctness of those? Honorable Stijn moves. Seconder. Honorable Dagani. Seconds. Thank you very much. That's a true record. Let's deal with the matters arising from the both sets of minutes. Any matters arising? Okay. No matters arising. Yes, Honourable
Deputy Speaker, thank you. I mean, it's obviously not something we're going to be able to deal with today, but it still remains live, the issue around the positioning of members' statements on the order paper. We had a discussion there around the problems in terms of ministers not being available in the House for those, and it was suggested at the time that we look at moving it up the order paper to the beginning of the sitting so ministers could be in the House for that, then leave to attend to their executive functions. We've not yet completed the discussion on that.
Okay. Can I suggest that, as Honourable Stijn suggests, that we consider that next time, do the processing, and then bring a firmer proposal on how we deal with the matter. Is that agreed?
Shall we take it to the subcommittee?
Sorry?
Shall it go to the subcommittee?
Yeah, maybe the subcommittee must thresh it out and then make a recommendation. On your plate, sir. You can't say no. It's an instruction of the meeting. So the subcommittee will deal with the matter and make a recommendation to the Rules Committee. Thank you very much. Sorry?
She was just greeting me.
You're greeting the Secretary of the National Assembly.
I was just acknowledging the Secretary.
Oh, okay. Oh, all right.